Hello, my name is William, the Avid reader, and today I'm going to review the book The Origins of the Second World War, written by AJP Taylor in 1961. And it talks about the reasons for a Second World War. So, among the reasons were the Treaty of Versailles, for example. So, the Treaty of Versailles took away territory from the Germans, and that created Poland and Czechoslovakia. They occupied the Western powers occupied the Rhineland until 1930, and they demanded reparations. And when they didn't receive reparations well enough, they got they occupied the French occupied the Ruhr, and they all had also previously strapped away Germany's colonies. They also restricted its military. Now, could the Germans make this seem as worse as possible? Well, first of all, they claimed that the loss of their colonies and the smaller military caused them economic strains, which shouldn't have been true and wasn't true with the loss of colonies, because German colonies were bad. They cost more than they produced. However, the smaller military, the German officers were smart, and politicians were smart enough to make having a smaller military, navy, and army cost more than it would have if it had a larger one. So that caused economic bad things. And to pay back the loan after the occupation of the Ruhr, between 1923 and 1925, they first introduced the DOS plan and then the Young plan, and reparations ended after the Great Depression, so between 1931 and then officially in 1932. Now, Marxists argue that the fall of Germany and Hitler's increasing demands were economic. Now, the former is true, the fall of Germany was due to economics. However, Hitler wasn't satisfied with trade deals. It was shown the English and the English especially tried to conciliate with Hitler by offering better trade deals. Like, if you take the peaceful route, then you get these great trade routes. And Hitler, that didn't convince Hitler. And you had the Locarno Treaty in 1925 to create a status quo, but the Rapallo Treaty in 1922 made so that Germany and Soviet Russia would not be antagonistic. And here's another thing to bear in mind: the Americans were barely involved. They practiced American isolationism, and that included President Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt. Now, here are some reasons for the failure of the League of Nations. The League of Nations was supposed to prevent wars. Well, you have the Japanese occupation of Manchuria between 1931 and 1932, and the Japanese left they left the League of Nations after that, after their criticism. Then you've got the Italian invasion of Abyssinia between 1935 and 1936. This was when actually British diplomat Eden tried to negotiate with Mussolini for a more reasonable portion of Abyssinia. After Mussolini wanted to annex fully Abyssinia, which made Eden furious, and one of the a bit like Churchill. Now, rearmament in Germany began, especially when Hitler came to power in 1933, and he gained full control of the German state and turned it into a dictatorship in 1934. Now here's some. Now, how did the German expansion of Nazi plan Lebensraum work? So, you've got the Saar plebiscite, 1935. you've got the Rhineland occupation. The Allies had left a few years ago the Rhineland. And then Hitler moved in March 1936. Then we've got Anschluss, which is after Schuschnigg, Prime Minister Schuschnigg did something that Hitler did not like in Austria. He used that he used that as an excuse to annex Austria in March 1938. And then he stirred up rabble in the Sudeten German areas in Czechoslovakia, and he applied pressure, and Hitler played a pretty interesting game. So he waited, and he gambled on that the French and especially the British would actually offer him something, so he wouldn't actually have to do the work of putting pressure. So the Brits put pressure on Czechoslovakia, and that handed over the German areas of Czechoslovakia to Germany in September 1938 or end October 1938. And then you've had Beans, the respectable Western man of democracy, in the president of Czechoslovakia. He resigned, so you've got Haka who replaces him. Now, without Beans and the previous president, Czechoslovakia isn't really anything. So Haka is made to sign away in March 1939 the independence of Czechoslovakia, to make Germany, to have Germany make it its protectorate of Bohemia, because other parts of Czechoslovakia were being taken over by Hungary and Poland. Now Poland were quite an arrogant nation. Beck was the one who had backbone. The foreign minister, he refused to cede Danzig, the Free State of Danzig, to Hitler, and to hold a referendum in the corridor between Germany and Poland. No, between East Prussia and Germany. Now, Poland and Germany had pretty good relations, and they were good until March 1939, when Britain offered them unconditional protection. Yes, and other thing on the Munich Agreement. So one of the sayings of many Western leaders were Hitler before Stalin, or rather Hitler then Stalin. So even though Soviet Russia offered help to Czechoslovakia, the Beans refused. And same became true with Poland. Poland would not allow help from the Soviet Russia. So and you have to remember, the USA is on neutral. They're in isolation, and then you've got Japan, who's messing around with British colonies in Asia. And the Brits and a bit of the French were in favor of Lebensraum, actually, and they viewed Danzig as not a strong case to keep for Polish. However, you had strong opposition of this from Churchill and later Eden too, and Daladier was half-hearted and lukewarm in this opposition. So he want the Germans go too far, and then Brits said let them go, so he let them go. And that was in large part because of Neville Chamberlain and the Foreign Affairs Minister Halifax, and then Foreign Affairs Minister of France, Bonnet. And but the Brits had to honor their alliance with Poland, because otherwise they would become a joke, and they believed that Germany would become too powerful. And this time the French did not want to go to war with Germany, and Britain and France wanted to form an alliance with Poland and Russia and Soviet Russia, but Poland refused. So Soviet Russia felt forced to sign the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in 1939, and thus they would divide Poland between themselves. And then you've got in September, the Germans and the Russians invade Poland, and Danzig is captured, which starts World War II. The Italians, the French, the British were hesitant initially, and the British and the French gave ultimatums. And then Italy tried to organize the conference to stop this war, but it wasn't possible. So Italy and Nazi Germany on one side, and then Great Britain and France on the other. And there you've got the European War. Well, it wasn't yet a Second World War. You could say it wasn't really the Second World War yet, since America and the Soviet Union hadn't joined yet. But yeah, that's the interesting thing. And then you could add an appendix to this, which would be the Spanish Civil War. And here's another failure of the League of Nations, since they did not come to help of the Republicans. And the Italians and Germans actually supported the fascists, and the Brits and the French were not really sure who they should support, because they preferred fascism to communism often, even though France was turning left wing. But Spain revealed to not really have a fate on World War II, and since Franco had decided to be neutral, which he wisely did. So yes, that was an explanation of the concepts of the origins of Second World War book by AJP Taylor, and it's an interesting and quite short read. It doesn't put all the blame on Hitler or Versailles, and it describes him as an astute gambler who waits on Britain to make an offer. So yes, so that's my review of the origins of the Second World War. Now this is the first English episode of the Avid Reader. There should be one coming out soon, in a few days, on Jurassic Park. So far, of the two reviews, they've been non-fiction, but I assure you it will not only be a non-fiction. So yes, I hope you enjoyed the review from the Avid Reader. I am William the Avid Reader, and I will see you guys later.